Chapter 7 of The House with the Twisting Passage by Marion St. John Webb. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Zanusha. The House with the Twisting Passage by Marion St. John Webb. Chapter 7 The People Behind the Doors. And the most surprising thing was that the lovely being in the pink silk dress did turn out to be like Jenny's Miss Ruby. The next day, after breakfast, Jenny managed to see her again, and watched her as she moved with just Miss Ruby's movements, and talked in just Miss Ruby's voice, and laughed with a little rippling laugh, just as Miss Ruby ought to have done. At least, as far as Jenny could remember, this fair maiden was like her Miss Ruby, but she got the two Miss Rubys so mixed up in her mind before the day was out, that she found it difficult to decide what things were done by the imaginary Miss Ruby that the live one did not do, and what things the live Miss Ruby did that the imaginary one ought to have done. At all events, here was Miss Ruby, right enough, and here was Miss Primrose, and it did not take Jenny long to discover Uncle Nodding, Black Jack, old Mrs. Bunch, Peter Bollin, and many more of them. She found these people living behind the doors in the long twisting passage, just as she had thought she would. People strangely like those of her imagination. How had it happened? Jenny would ask herself this question 10 times a day, trying to find some way of explaining matters, but she always had to give it up in the end, and shake her head. It was fortunate that Miss Lane, or Miss Primrose as we must call her, had taken such a liking to Jenny. Through this, Jenny was soon able to make friends with the occupants of the various rooms, and afterward was often in the company of one or other of her own people, as she called them to herself. From the very first she felt at home with these folk, just as they, in their turn, seemed to feel on easy terms with her. There seemed to be an understanding between Jenny and these grown-ups, but neither she nor they ever referred to the matter in any way. Jenny had a feeling that she might spoil things if she spoke, so she kept silent. The only person that Jenny could not find, much to her regret, was Mr. Snatcher. She looked for him in every fresh room that she entered, but she looked in vain. No bad-tempered man with a big black moustache was living under the roof of the manor house. And then, one day, she did find him, but you will hear all about that later on. At present, having explained how Jenny came to the old manor house and found her pretending people, and how these pretending people came alive, I want to tell you next what Miss Primrose and Uncle Nodding and Miss Ruby and Phil the fiddler, who was exactly like himself, only he played a flute instead of a violin, and Black Jack and all the rest of them told Jenny when she went to tea in their rooms. Of course, all these people had different names according to Aunt Abby, but we shall call them by the names that Jenny gave them. End of Chapter 7.